All right, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom. Welcome to the Black First Roundtable. And today we're having part two of our discussion on our sister, Fannie Lou Hamer, and learning more in depthly of what was going on to be able to look at certain things and analyze it and come up with what this should have been or what that should have been so that we can move properly into the future. So we're going to go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves. But as you come forth and introduce yourself today, just thinking on where we are in time right now, where President Biden may be giving some planes to the Ukraine that came from Poland, which will probably, if he actually does it, may piss Putin off and make Putin decide to attack the U.S. If that does be the case, and the call is given to join up and go over there and fight, what would be your answer when you get that telephone call, email, or mail at the door? What would be your answer to that question? And we'll start with Sister Gwen, then we go to Brother Ronnie, then Dr. Jones.
Call me Gwen B or Sister Gwen. I'm Black first and everything that comes with it. Now, about that answer to the question, I'm too old to go right now, but I wouldn't go anyway, because I think it's proven that America doesn't do Black people any good when we join the military. We don't get the benefit of what it takes when you join or fight their battles for them. I look at fighting, because I was thinking about this. When you're fighting for something, that is, you're fighting for something that you're going to get a benefit for. But we don't get that. So we're fighting over philosophy and being a mercenary fighting somebody else's battle, and they're going to walk away with the prize. As far as America in general, fighting battles, my philosophy now is if we've shed blood for your country, then we keep it. It should be ours, because you got the population to fight your own battle. An 18-year-old high schooler graduate high school, join the military, and 8 weeks later, they're on the front lines. If you got a population in your country, you can do that yourself. I don't know why we need to fight your battle for you. If you got enough population to bitch about whatever's going on wrong, then you got population to fight. I do support us giving them guns, but it should be driven up to the border, handed to the president of their country in person, where he's out there to accept the guns, sign off on it, and then they're yours. And and it's a tab. You got to pay me for my guns now. So I'm really tired of America getting in everybody's business, because we have no business being in everybody's business. Our country is too young. We haven't solved our own problems, and running around being a busybody on the world's front is too much. These people have had problems since before the Bible. Those in the Middle East, those names are in the Bible. Who are we to judge? Excuse me. The names of the places in the Middle East are in the Bible. Europe is old as 2,000 or 3,000 years old. There, this country is only about 500 years old. We have no business fighting their battles. They messing with us. That's all they're doing. And so my philosophy is that we have to shed blood, then we keep it. Whatever we fighting for, we keep it. It becomes America. So that's my philosophy now.
Thanks, Sister Gwen. Right.
Hey, this is Ronnie. Blessings to everyone. I go by High Side Bravo. If they sent me a letter, my answer would be no. That business over there in Ukraine is none of mine. I actually trained some Ukrainians in Iraq on how to do patrols, but I have no kinship with them. We have enough problems going on here in America, and I rest my mic.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Hassan. Doc?
Nah, I ain't gonna be able to do it. I have no interest whatsoever in participating in European wars. Um, you know, I have no interest in it, and I don't think that anybody in their right mind who has any understanding of history from our side should be even open to the possibility of it. No, no, because and then the fact is that each one of these souls that is going to be killed, for what, you know, and that's what it comes down to. And I understand Putin and Russia wanting the Ukraine to remain neutral, to not join NATO. Um, it reminds me a hell of a lot, with their insistence that the Ukraine remains neutral and doesn't serve as almost a military jump off point for NATO nations, especially the United States. It reminds me of the Cuban Missile Crisis when the USSR attempted to put missiles on the island of Cuba. And JFK's response was, if that occurs, the world is now over. He was willing to destroy the world. So it's a different side of the same coin for me. And I'm a man of peace. I'm a conscientious objector. I ain't going over there for what? So they wouldn't let me get on the train when the things got rough. Oh hell no. And I you.
All right, thank you, Doc. That's for sure. 'Cause I wouldn't be going over there anyway. Ain't no way in the world. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Okay, Doc, we can go ahead and roll with the first clip.
When I was about 13, I began to understand what my mother was talking about. And I prayed to God to give me the chance. And I told him if he would just let me live to get grown, I would get out in the streets and on the turn roads. And I would devote my life for seeing that things would be different for any poor person in the state of Mississippi. We have always been taught that we had to suffer as Christ suffered. But I think in terms of what David had to do, David was a shepherd boy, but it did come in a time in his life he had to slay Goliath.
Okay, all right. Sister Gwen, what did you get out of that?
Not much. It's just that she was making her decision to go ahead and take the risk to move forward with protest and addressing America with the treatment of Black people. And she made an active decision for it. And I'm proud of her. I did look her up. And yeah, she was an activist. She was alive in my lifetime. So in 64 or so. So, and that's why she was famous. And she made that active decision and it helped. It worked.
What do you think about, because people make commitments all the time, right?
But she followed through.
Yeah, she said that she, wanted to devote her life for helping poor people. And that reminds me, Minister Farrakhan had said, when he joined the Nation of Islam, that he would, promise to God that he would take that word to every nook and cranny of this country, and he has done that. When people, do you think that is a different kind of commitment when they make that commitment, out to everybody versus just to them and their God when they're talking?
Well, the commitment is really internal. It's a commitment, and then you speak it external. That's when you tell them, but when you make the real commitment, the true commitment, you make it to yourself first. It's a drive that's in yourself, and it's an internal drive that starts from within, the true one. Now, the one that's going to be fake is the one that's from people telling you what to do and you agreeing to it. And then that those usually fail, or certainly are hollow and not as good. An easy example of an external one is when your family wants you to get off the drugs and you finally agree to it, but that's not going to work because it never was an internal commitment. You never committed to it yourself. People have told you to commit and you said the words, so you went through the motions of saying the words, but you didn't really mean it. The real commitment for a change comes from you. There's nobody else can pressure you to do it. It comes 100% from your spirit to yourself, telling you what you want to do. And this will come through and you will follow through whether anybody knows it or not, because you decided it for yourself. Nobody can even tell you to do it because it won't work. That's why I don't even bother telling people what to do. And I try to give them the knowledge, but I don't tell them or expect them to do anything until they decide themselves. And that's what she did. She decided herself. After she got started, then she voiced it, but her commitment came from inside and she did follow through. During that time, Black people's commitment was to integrate with white people and make it a better society. That was the focus. We didn't know that was going to be a failure until later, after the 80s, when we saw it fall around us. Because after the civil rights movement, Black people thought they were done and everything was going smooth. It was on the right track. We could stop and everybody get equal treatment under the law and all of that. And we really thought America was on the right track. During 1980, it made a detour. And that's why I always say that white people did try in the 60s. They tried their best, but they couldn't commit to it or stay with it because it's not their nature. They always revert back to their true nature, which is what we're seeing now.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Sister Wayne.
Hi, Sister Neff.
Welcome, Brother Carlton. Doc, can we rewind that piece back so that Carlton and Sister Neff can see it?
And how y'all doing?
Hey. Sorry I'm late.
When I was about 13, I began to understand what my mother was talking about. And I prayed to God to give me the chance. And I told him if he would just let me live to get grown, I would get out in the streets and on the turn roads. And I would devote my life for seeing that things would be different for any poor person in the state of Mississippi. We have always been taught that we had to suffer as Christ suffered. But I think in terms of what David had to do. David was a shepherd boy, but it did come in a time in his life he had to slay Goliath.
Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton. Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of day. Oh Lord, I'll pick a bale of cotton. Oh Lord, pick a bale of day. Jump down, turn around, and pick a bale of cotton. Jump down, turn around, and pick a bale of day. Jump down, turn around, and pick a bale of cotton. Jump down, turn around, and pick a bale of day. Oh Lord, pick a bale of cotton. Oh Lord, pick a bale of day.
So in 1962, they
Okay, thank you, Doc. Brother Hassan, what did you get out of that?
From the beginning of the clip, it said she started to understand what her mother was trying to tell her by the age she got 13. And I think that was from the previous clip of her mother teaching her about pride and having pride within herself, you know. And you know, I also like how she turned her head at the end when she said there came a time that David had to slay Goliath, and she used, you know, the scripture and the whole scripture rightly divided. You know, she said in the beginning that we were taught that we had to suffer as Christ suffered. You know, and that's part of the programming in the past. You know, trying to have us being passive or a pacifist, or not being you know, sticking up for yourself, because you know it's a difference when you're, you know, in the battle that Christ had in the battle that us as black folks have. So you know, her, you know, taking that stance and fighting for her people, like that's a when you understand the times that she was in and knowing the consequences that come from behind that come behind, you know, taking up for your people, then you know it's just an honorable stance that she took and a decision that she made within herself, you know, and that she committed to. And I rest my mic.
Brother Hassad, let me ask you, since that what you pulled out of there, do you think that or I interpreted that she was saying don't follow the Christ suffering part, focus more on the David Goliath thing. But I would say, now I haven't been in all churches in black churches in America, but I don't think that they teach more of the be like David. I think they teach more like suffer as Christ suffered. So do you think she was more aligned with the I guess the majority of Christian thought, or was she on a different type of Christian thought? What is your thinking on that?
I think she came to an awakening. You know what I'm saying? So I really can't speak to what, you know, what she may have, you know, or her train of thought on Christianity or whatnot. I know that was the watering hole and the meeting place and the place of not necessarily having to deal with white folks, but you know, she was, I guess, found a way to understand the whole word, you know, and you know, I mean, I guess that was the decision, you know, the fight that she, that was the way that she decided to take on the fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, this not to say that she discounted the suffering part, because she did have to suffer during that fight, but she didn't lay down her weapons or whatnot. She picked them up, and being that one of her heroes was Joe Pullen, and that you saw what he did in Drew, Mississippi. I think she totally kind of was willing to accept whatever came behind what she did, whether it was right or wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes that's kind of like what you have to, the crossroads that you have to come to. You know, and I rest my mic.
All right, thank you, Brother Hassad. Doc, what'd you get out of that?
You know, the ability to utilize the Bible as a weapon for liberation of Black folk has always been one of the signs for me that you're dealing with someone who God truly has placed a special mind, heart inside of. It's true that there's literally justification for any and everything under the sun to be found in the Bible. You know, a time to live, a time to die. You know, so anytime I come across people who tap into it and utilize it for liberatory purposes. I have to tip my hat to him. She's absolutely correct that it is fine that we're Christ-like. Yet at the exact same time that we're Christ-like, we need to really have a comprehension and an understanding of what that really means. That it does not mean that you're a pushover. It does not mean that you're going to be so meek and mild and they slap your two cheeks on your face that you turn your ass around and they slap both of them as well. That ain't what we're talking about. You know, we don't serve a cowardly God. We serve a God that is vengeful, a God that truly has proven through his word that he does not love everyone in what they do. And if we look at, we really take a look, an unbiased look at what Yeshua, Jesus, the Christ, the Messiah, is actually telling his disciples. He tells them, if you're around the people and they can't accept his word, you go ahead and shake the sand out of your sandals and move and keep it moving. That's a black Messiah. That's the black revolutionary Messiah that it is very important that black folk are exposed to. Unfortunately, so many of our preachers are learning from white folk about what God is supposed to be. And that's been one of our historical problems, our deepest historical problems, because it leads to a psychological psychosis that causes many of our people to deify the white man, their oppressor. And I yield.
Let me ask you, because Brother Hassad used the word awakening, and I find that to be very fitting. But when we look at the Christian church, not everybody gets that awakening. It seems as if that they would rather stay with the suffering part and oversee or don't even recognize the David and Goliath part. What causes that? Some will wake up and some will just not even be aware that this is going on.
If a fight breaks out, some gonna run and some gonna stay. We're talking about character. We're talking about courage. We're talking about heart. I wish people would stop blaming the Bible for their refusal to fight. Don't put that on God. Don't put that on Scripture. That's on you. That there is nothing that white folk are able to do under the face of the planet, on the face of the planet Earth, that would cause enough indignation for you to fight them. That's a personal psychological issue. You are, as one football coach referred to one of his players, when reporters asked about him, he said, I believe that he is a devout coward. And many of our people are devout cowards. And they're going to find a justification. They're going to find a reasoning. They're going to find it within Scripture to not do nothing. And it reminds me of that moment. And I know that we've talked about this. The moment that we all assembled in this community after Sandra Bland had been abducted. And I sat there anticipating some brothers talking about some political things. And here I see these Negro preachers get up in front of that church that didn't even have AC in it, I must add. They handed out water to keep us from having a stroke. And they said, well, look here, this ain't for none of that rabble rousing and political talk. There ain't time for that. What we gonna do, we gonna pray for them. We gonna pray for them that took that sister. There's nothing you can do with that. They didn't get that. They weren't convinced of that from Scripture. They're cowards. They don't have any indignation in them. And it, the type of Negro that would, as Malcolm would say, as violent as you was over there in Vietnam, and you come back over here and you meek as a lamb, there's something wrong with that mindset. And it's not Christ-like.
All right, thank you, Doc. Brother Carlton, what did you get out of that?
Well, yeah, you see somebody who's clearly understanding her true place and putting her faith in her proper location and her proper place and informing her on what she needs to do. And clearly you can tell she really has studied and understood, the meaning and scripture of unfolding. And so unfortunately, Black folks have never gotten that memo, unfortunately. And the thing is, when you look at it, if you look at the church, other places outside of this country where Black folks are informed by their faith, they understand that it's in its proper location, that yes, there will be suffering. You have to suffer. It's part of the human experience. However, there comes a certain time where you have to stand up and do and activate. James tells us faith without works is dead. You have to go put in the work. You have to go do the work that for these things. We're praying and waiting. We're told to actively wait, actively prepare. It's not enough just to pray. Praying is fine. I think having that connection with your Creator, however that looks like, however that feels like to you, is a fine thing. You get no argument out of me. But if you don't go out and take the concrete steps to make things a reality, that's what it is. And we talk about these preachers. Well, yeah, I realize these preachers are on the hustle too, because listen, they're making too much money off of these people. So these, so you see these preachers are up here driving nice cars, living in nice homes. They don't want to mess up their livelihood. They're in the hustle as well with the white folks in faith. So that's why you see Christianity can be so abused and misused, both by the oppressor and by our own, to control and to keep wealth and power in certain locations, in certain locales, and for certain people. Unfortunately, some people just want to get a little piece of that throne. Let me just have a little taste of that luxury, and that's all I need. And so people make that Faustian bargain, so to speak, to let themselves not speak out in truth, but speak out or give half truths or do whatever they have to do to maintain the current status quo, because that it's against their interest to fight back. And that's been the greatest tragedy of the last 50, 60 years. And what we didn't expect from the civil rights era is that, unfortunately, that some of our folks have, quote unquote, progressed to a higher, level of security, economic security, let's say. However, they look at it and say, listen, now, you're a threat to my economics. Nah, shoot, I don't see anything in common cause with you, even though we have the same skin, and we know when it comes down to it, we'll be treated the same, essentially. Benjamin Franklin said it best: we'll either hang together or hang separately. So it's that delusion that I have a little bit more economically, therefore I have nothing in common with you any longer. I got a little bit of education, I got a little bit of money in my pocket. We don't have anything in common. You that riffraff over there. Stay away from me. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And so that delusion has really diluted a lot of the thinking, the educated, and especially the religious class in our country, unfortunately, where we don't have a commitment to liberation. We have a commitment to just being comfortable. And that is that's a crying shame, because it's not the Bible's fault. It's not Christ's fault why these people are little lambs and meek and mild. It's that comfortability. They're comfortable in their suffering. And that's, I can't get with that. Because it's nothing wrong with suffering as long as you're uncomfortable with the suffering. If the suffering makes you mad, miserable, and upset, that's the point of suffering. So you can change your situation and look to change your situation. If you don't know what to do to change your situation, you look out and you ask and you get the help you can to change it. But a lot of our folks are happier and they're satisfied. And that's, I can't get with that. With that, I yield.
Well, Brother Carlton, let me ask you, in that case, right, in that situation that we're dealing with, nothing else, just in that type of situation, is passivity a sin?
In this situation, yes. To me, it is, because it goes against what God wants for you. It goes against that. You're rebelling, essentially, because Satan can use passivity against you. You know what? If you have a drug addict, I'm just lost. There is no saving me. There's no hope. There's no hope for me. That despondentness, that is sinful. You have to cut that out first before you can get to the drug issue. We gotta eliminate that first before we even discuss that. If somebody's greatly overweight, I can't lose the weight. I can't do it. That despondentness is sinful. We're taught that. I'm gonna get ready to go this Lent. Get ready to go to confession for Lent season. One of the things they always say before you go to confession is that when you when you're stuck in a certain sin, you can't get out. When you despair, you're compounding your sin. You're making it worse. Because you believe you can't change, you don't believe that your God's an all powerful God to help you change. He's not going to do it for you, but he's going to point out the way to get it to you. He's going to help point you in the right direction. And so if you don't believe that a God that split the Red Sea can help you get off the drugs, help you lose 100 pounds, you don't believe in a powerful God. Then so you don't truly believe that you can change yourself, that you have that power, that you've been gifted that through the Holy Spirit. So if you don't believe that, okay, then you don't really believe in God. And that's what we see. We see a lot. The issue you see, Brother Muhammad, is folks who are cultural Christians, not true believing Christians. They're cultural. It's part of their culture. Like, oh yeah, I need to go to church on Sunday to see my friend. I need to go enjoy the little activities we're having at church, not the actual. I need to be fed by the word. I need to hear something this week that changes me and makes me better for this next week. Because maybe I didn't live the best week this week I should have lived. And so that's what you see. It's out of habit and out of a sense of I need some socialization, not out of a sense of duty to changing and being who you are. No, why does God have the third commandment? You should always remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. It's not for God. God doesn't need our worship. It's for you. It's for us. That's why there's a Sabbath. And so we can be strengthened and reinforced and rejuvenated. So we can go out there and face the world and do what we have to do. That's the point of having Sabbath on Sunday. And a lot of folks kind of misconstrue that. Oh, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to be around hypocrites and all them people. And I get that. That makes sense. But it's not about God. It's about you. About making you better, making you prepare for what you're supposed to do. Now, it's on you to go find somebody who's going to fill you with the right words. If you go in there with the wrong and get the wrong word from the wrong preacher, you're gonna come out the same person you were before. You should leave always. I think about in the Gospels, the transfiguration story. When you leave church, you should be transfigured like Peter, James, and John's were on Mount Tabor. That's how you should be leaving church every single Sunday. If you're not, you're wasting your damn time. You've got nothing out of it. You wasted your time. You need to go do something else with your Sundays.
Thank you, Brother Carlton. Thank you. Sister Beth, what did you get out of it?
Everything that everyone has shared. I think one of the takeaways, though, that's sort of a little bit different than what folks have shared is when she talked about being 14.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made me realize that truly the revolution is reborn with the awakening of every new generation. That you have literally babes, when they see injustice, that spirit rises up in them. The spirit of truth, the spirit of the divine creator rises up in them. And she made a promise to herself that when she was good and grown, she would make sure to help others who were in the condition that she was finding herself in. And you see that with a lot of young people. And for me, that is the hope and promise, is that with each new generation and their awakening, a new revolution is being reborn. So yeah, that was the one thing I was able to take away from that.
And do you think that for those generations that's being born and coming into the revolution, do you think that they find it easy to betray the revolution?
Not in their youth. I think once you have become calloused, like some of us here, definitely. There's a callousing that happens where you start to move away from that pure sort of unbridled revolution, the spirit of truth that lives in you, that is able to see a thing and say that is wrong and really not care about what the nuances might be. I think it's us adults who have betrayed the revolution, and that's due to a callousing, a conditioning over time, but not in their youth. So if we were to entrust the youth, if we were to give them the power to do the things, I think we would probably find ourselves in a different place. We need to put more faith in the youth and allow them to do what's necessary while they're still young.
Sister's right here. So you gotta realize, as you get older, you get more responsibilities, Brother Muhammad, and I get and I do get frustrated with people in my age group and older, because they make these conscientious decisions. But I empathize. I understand that, oh, I have a mortgage, I've got a car now, I've got all these different responsibilities I have to meet. And I get that, and so I do feel some sympathy there. So yeah, it's gonna be young folks that are gonna get you out of the mess you're in. It's not gonna be people my age and older. Unfortunately, I'm about to be 35 this year, or 36 this year, actually. So it's getting to the point where your focus changes in some ways. Keeping that revolutionary spirit into your 60, 70, and 80 is a hard road to hoe. And many folks just choose an extra ramp and say, you know what, not gonna do this. I can't do this any longer. And they rather do other things with their lives. And I'm not a fan of the decision, but I understand the decision, I guess you could say. And so we have to pump a lot of your hope in those young people. Like you gotta be, and no, I'm so hard on young people. So I'm like, listen, you gotta be ready to hit your feet on the ground and ready to roll when you turn to 17, 18, because you gotta be out there. You gotta be out there in the streets working and getting it if you're gonna change anything, because it's gonna come from you guys making that call and demanding change. Not gonna come from old people, unfortunately, because they're gonna always look out for their own interests. I'm retired. I gotta worry about my Social Security and my Medicare. Okay, fair enough, but you see the focus changes, unfortunately, for a lot of people once they get older. Instead of focusing on instilling in young people that revolutionary spirit, it changes to more selfish needs. Some of them are important temporal needs, and you don't want to discount them, but unfortunately, I think we lean too far in their direction for the sake of protecting our own interests.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Carlton. Okay, Doc, we can go to the next part.
So in 1962, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee came into Roosevelt. That Monday night, I went over here, right around the corner here, to this church, William Chapel. And the pastor announced at the end of service that there would be a mass meeting that night, that Monday night. My husband drove me from out in the rural area where I had been working to the church. And when we got there, Bob Moses, Lance Guillot, Reggie Robinson, James Bevel, Jim Foreman from SNCC got up and explained how it was our constitutional right to register and vote, and how it could change, the different laws. Like if we didn't want a law in the town or what was going on, we could vote them out. So I thought it was the most remarkable thing that could happen in the state of Mississippi. I'd never heard until 1962 that black people could register and vote. I'd never even heard that was in the Constitution.
Well, we go in.
All right, Sister Gwen, what'd you get out of that?
I'm glad that she did. Like I said, her moving forward is what helped us understand what happens today. And it had to happen. The civil rights movement had to happen the way it did, so that we'll understand that it didn't work. And part of it was voting. We still haven't got political representation. I mean, the Democrats don't really do what we need. So we have to take it to the next level. Right now, we're still regurgitating the old level, but we really need to take control of ourselves. And it's all on us.
And so this particular clip reminded me of the Willie Lynch letter, because in the Willie Lynch letter, he says that we have blocked off all avenues of light that will enter the Negro's mind. So she said she didn't even know about a constitution. She didn't even know about a vote. So she was 43 years old when she learned she had a right to vote and it could change laws. 43 years old. This where she's just coming into the understanding that, damn, We can change laws. We can do this. We can do that. We have a right. So, briefly, what do you think about that?
Because I'm not, it took me years to catch on that we're dealing with demons. I'm not surprised when you understand this a demon. That's a demonic thing to do to somebody, to keep them in the dark, to make them think that they had no choices and that they were paying taxes. These people down there, Black people were paying taxes like the white people were, but they didn't have the same rights. And a being that would talk about rights and all of that in one breath, but take it away from somebody else in another breath, is a horrible thing to do. And so this is what kind of people you're dealing with. And these people didn't want them to do that. Didn't even want them to even catch on then. So that's terrible. And the Black people there didn't have control because they honestly didn't even know that it was there. Later, Black people started catching on. My mom worked in the Deep South when she was a teenager. And some of her years parallels Fannie Lou Hamer's. And she was working my grandmother worked for a white family as a cook. And my mother worked as whatever they do for the children of the white family. And they worked on the farms and stuff. One of the white girls noticed my mom receiving mail about school, and she said that the mom recounted the story to me, that the white girl said, "I knew you were going to school. I could tell by the mail you received." Because my mom wasn't so down that she didn't understand how to read and find stuff out herself. And that's what she did. She went to school. She went to got an associate's degree on her own in nursing, which was one of the fields that women could go into during those years. And then she came back and became a nurse's assistant to a doctor in his office. And in the years later, I was named after the doctor's daughter. And so at least I know where my name came from. I have a picture of this little white blonde girl named Gwendolyn, and she named me after her, after the wife's daughter. That was how the South was. And my family and members of my family read enough to know that what white people were telling them wasn't everything there was. My mom also told me stories about how white people would be plotting on you while you sleeping. Because white people, she walked in on the two daughters of the household talking about the people that worked for them. And they were saying things like, well, so-and-so is getting kind of old now. We got to start putting them in clothes, that kind of thing. As they talk about one of the children and how they were going to maneuver this child to be doing what they thought that the child should be doing, the Black child. So, and this was at nighttime where the Black people are sleeping and in bed, these white people are sitting there talking about what they're going to be doing on you. And mom told me that white people be plotting on you while you sleeping. And so that's how it was. These are true stories and true accounts.
All right. Thank you, Sister Gwen. Brother Hassad?
Yeah, I think it's like what Sister Neff said earlier about with each generation, it's a new revolution. Them folks down in Texas didn't even know that they were free. Then we were able to read and learn the law. Then you had Black politicians getting elected to, whether it was the Senate or the Congress or whatnot. So, with each generation, it's a new fight, a new battle. With this generation here, with my generation rather, I think we're really at the precipice of having to understand that it ain't gonna be about equality. There'll never necessarily be an equal playing field for us. So we have to learn how to dominate the playing field. period. I don't think there's any way around that when you're going against an opponent that wants to dominate, that learns how to make loopholes, that knows how to cheat, that has decks stacked in their favor. You know, being that we're not, maybe we're not getting put in trees like we used to be. We're just getting put on video clips or body cams, and the perpetrator is still getting let off the hook because of this, that, and the third, or them wearing a badge. And so like that, I think that's where, kind of like our struggle now, because we know we can vote. We know that still they trying to um, um, change districts and change who's able to vote, and make laws where if you commit a crime you can't vote. Um, so I think that we have to kind of look forward to you know um, ultimately being the winners and being able to handle winning. If not, we're going to be on the verge of extinction, and that's just kind of putting it like how I see it. They put the Native Americans over on reservations, and they'll just keep us broke and working hard, and you know having everyone else kind of lap us or pass us in this race. And I rest my mic.
Brother Hassad, when you say we just have to dominate the field, um, so is that one of those, like what Malcolm X would say, by any means necessary? And if that is what you're saying, then how do we take the passivity that Brother Carlton was saying that's a sin, and how do we move them from passivity into action to be that aggressive?
This I don't know. Like I mean, I'm not gonna say I don't know. I do know that a lot of people don't get activated until it hits them at home. People don't start breast cancer awareness movements until someone in their family gets affected with breast cancer. People don't get into, a lot of people don't, have, activism until it's one of their children that gets shot or they're directly affected. So, how to change the passivity of some people. Like, unfortunately for me, that's kind of that's not the depths that I'm gonna be operating in. I'm gonna be operating in people that's already activated. Sometimes trying to get people to think like you can be a detriment, because that's when you have people that will not wholeheartedly be on what you're on, and then that's when people start leaking out information. So I try to keep my circles kind of small. That way I know pretty much who I'm dealing with, and but to change people's passivity or turning the other cheek, or you know being long suffering, I don't necessarily have all the answers for that. So with that, I rest my mic.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Hassan. Doc?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So what did you get out of the short clip?
Well, it just reminds me of how dominated our people were, and how crucial it is if a man learns through um, observation and participation. And then the scripture tells us that as a man thinketh, so is he. We got to be the ones that are pouring into our children, pouring into our adult populations, because apparently that's the substance of what makes the world go round, as far as what our observations are, what we believe is even possible, even what we can imagine. If we allow outside people, especially our oppressors, to determine those things and dictate those things to us, to our children, we're going nowhere, because we can't even imagine being free, because they haven't taught us that we could be free. It kind of reminds me of the recent quote that's been circulating by Putin, where he's saying to an African leader, "You guys, you act like we're gods. You don't trust yourselves," and that comes from somewhere. And for me, the idea of not knowing that you could vote, the idea of not knowing that you are the supreme agent in determining not only how your people's life shall go, but your life will go as well, is truly sad. Yet at the exact same time, it does, because this is Fannie Lou Hamer we're talking about. And all the power that she has within her soul, within her being, was almost never unleashed, because she hadn't been taught correctly. She hadn't been exposed to proper things. I yield.
Doc, I've heard people say that they didn't believe in the Willie Lynch letter. And if we just take that viewpoint that it wasn't real, right?
Hmm?
But we're looking at a problem. We're looking at, keeping the knowledge out of the mind of the slave. We're dividing the age, the old from the young. We see all of these different things, right?
Mhm.
And when you deal on the point of keeping knowledge from a person's mind, then that is the way that they can be, subjugated to this negative treatment for the rest of their lives and their children's lives and their children's lives.
Yeah.
So what, as an educator, and you're dealing with the youth that's coming in that should be, on a certain level, and those that are not, all right? How do you internalize that? And then, what do you do about it at that point? Because they are already, at the collegiate level now. What do you do? How do you fix that?
You give them a IV of truth, put it right into their brain, and you download it and download it and download it, and hope that it saturates their brain, their minds, and their soul. I was talking today in class about we're at the 1954 Brown decision in one of my classes, and I'm talking to them about the idea of school integration, and overwhelmingly my students are in support of integration within the classroom, and they're saying, well, we should get the same education that white students get. And they said, you don't agree with that? I said, no, I don't. I don't agree with that at all. Okay. And we did my little experiment that I used to drive home the dangers of that type of thinking, which is having them exposing them to a song that the Black children, the Panther Cubs, the children who participated in the Black Panther Party's Breakfast with Children program, they're learning songs like Black is Beautiful, Free Huey, Set Our Warrior Free, Free Huey. And none of my students know any of that. And so I say, but you do know this one, right? Old MacDonald had a farm, and they all instantaneously said E-I-E-I-O. Okay. And it's one of those things where after talking to them and explaining to them, okay, this same education that you got with white folk is sort of the foundation for why you know who Anne Frank is, but you don't know who Assata Shakur is. Did it work for you? And they began to think. And one of my students, she said, well, her parents, she said, my mind is going through 1,000 different thoughts. And she says, my parents were adamant that I went to a white school. And I tried to, I didn't want to throw her parents under the bus, but I'm kind of like, I get what they were thinking about, that at this point in time that we live within a white man's world, and they're trying to position you to be able to get a education that will allow you to get a position so that you can, you're going to be helping to reinforce this white world supremacy that we're dealing with. But hopefully you'll be paid well enough that you could be a homeowner, that maybe you wouldn't have to eat dog food or cat food in your retirement years. It's a compromise. But to take it all the way back, you just have to really think that you entered into this world knowing how to do what? Cry and shit. That's it. You learned everything else. And we should be asking ourselves, we often talk about a diet as far as food goes. We need to have an entire discussion and campaign on intellectual diet. What are you feeding into your mind? And that's a thought that needs to really be dealt with, not only amongst those with no degrees, but all the way up through PhDs. And I talk about, I was talking about in class today, being in a meeting, and we're waiting for this meeting to start. And this is a couple of years ago when Cardi B was performing at the Houston Rodeo. And one of my colleagues, Black woman, starts talking about, oh, I can't wait to get there so I can see my girl Cardi B and blah, 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 blah. And another sister in the meeting is co-signing that as well. And I'm like, in what world does the grossest, worst, least intelligent aspect of your populace guide the smartest? And to drive home her determination to idolize Cardi B, she sticks her tongue out. You are no different than the most uneducated one that we have. And actually, now that I think about it, you're the same as her. Because all of that schooling, all of that time reading, nothing, not one morsel of it took hold. So what was it worth? And it definitely is of no use for uplifting our people. Because you on your way to see the modern day equivalent of Luke dances in public. But we'll turn around and say, well, Black women need to be revered and need to be respected because we are the mother of civilization. You're also the ruiners of it at some level. And I yield.
Thank you, Doc. Brother Carlton?
Ooh, well, I think Joe's handled a lot for me, but I think it's this, until we get our hands on young people, you're gonna keep talking about these situations, and you have to have these kids. I mean, I'm gonna say something really damn extreme. I almost want to say put all Black kids in boarding schools and let us work with them all day 24/7. Because I want their parents to undo what the hell I just taught them. I had a student today, a Mexican student in physics. I'm teaching physics today, and Mexican student says, man, Mr. Shingles, I can't do this. I'm like, why? I just can't do math. It's not in my nature to do math. And I said, okay. I said, you're from Mexico, right? Mexico City, right? You're probably descended from Mayan people, right? The Mayan people came up with the concept of zero. It's in your blood to know math. Your people were some of the greatest mathematicians ever in history. Really? Hell yeah, you were. I went through all these different names of all these different folks who from Mayan history who were great great mathematicians. Like, it's in your blood to be a mathematician. Look at, and I showed them pictures of Tenochtitlan, of the old Mexico City and the beautiful pyramids they built and things like that. I said, listen, this is who you are, homie. So I had no idea. Of course you had no idea. The school told you that the school doesn't want you to know anything about yourself and who you are and what your contributions to society and mathematics. This is your nature. This is who you truly are. Them other folks have told you ain't good at math, told you you're special ed, you got a learning disability. No, I'm going to tell you, you can do this if you choose to do it. You're just making conscious decisions not to. And you made this unholy alliance with white folks. Hey, listen, baby, I'll just pass you along. Oh, you just can't do it. You're just too damn dumb. You ain't got the smarts. Let's go on, pass you along. So now you are in no position. And listen, I know you don't want to go to college, and that's okay. I don't have anything against you not going to college. You want to work your business. Listen, nobody else going to rob your ass blind your own business. You want to own the plumbing business, right? They're going to rob you blind. Because you don't have the skills to balance your books. So what I'm saying, this is bigger than just you working a problem for me in physics class. It's about your future, Hoss. And so a lot of these young folks, they're told from an early age, oh, you really can't do this. It's A-okay. So I'm going to teach you the absolute bare minimum I have to teach you, and I'm just going to let you go along about your way. And so what that creates is a permanent underclass. So that young man, the way he's thinking right now is no threat to change anything, because he has no understanding of the power and intellectual capacity that he already has. This needs to be unlocked and triggered. And so, I would say we have to take all Black children away and lock them in boarding schools and just teach them 24/7, where they get nothing but what we impact and put in their lives. They've done it before in history. I think they got rid of all. I mean, you saw what happened in Canada with the church basically locking Indian kids up in those boarding schools. Shit. At least I know we'll do it righteously if we have to do it. I mean, that's be the only way you could literally do that, because I have to control what they watch on TV, what they read, what they eat, the activities they participate in, the people they hang around. I have to control where they went to church on Sundays. I mean, there'd be so much I have to do, because, I mean, you would think about it, you do all this work Monday through Friday, and then on Sunday they go to church and hear some janky ass pastor tell them, oh, turn the other cheek. Be meek and mild, accept your position in life. It's okay. Jesus is going to come back from the grave and liberate everything and make it all better. I have to control literally everything to make this better, because their parents aren't going to do it. Their parents have no interest in doing it. The parents just want to just basically live their lives, maybe have a few little nice comforts and luxuries. They're not interested in really changing their kids' future's lives. They're not even thinking about that. They want their kids to just don't get in trouble, but with white people. Don't embarrass me. Don't make me look bad, and go out there and make some money. And that's about it. All they see, Brother Muhammad. So that'd be the only way you could literally do this. Because, I mean, at this point, this is looking at our children, especially, I'm talking about young kids, 5, 6, 7. I need them all day, every day. And without a break, because it's the only way I can fix it. Because they're going to go home to their families eventually, and their families are going to undo all the work you guys put in, and we put into them, without our rest.
This is something that we could actually do. We almost have the credentials in this room to do that. Is get the orphaned or discarded Black children in America in various cities, set up a house, and move them in and teach them. We can do that. We got the skills. We've got it'll be minimal money. It'll be money, but it'll be minimal money, especially if the teacher lives on site, because it's going to be a group home, and maybe 12 or 13 kids, maybe more, in the group home with a credentialed, not even a Western credentialed educator, but a moral person or two teaching, and all of us and people volunteering to come in and teach and help. Food can be donated by people growing it in the garden, raise them vegan so they can learn how to eat properly, because we can't even metabolize Western food properly. We really can't. We don't have the system to metabolize agricultural modern food that they're selling us, because that's why we get sick, because we can't metabolize it like they can. That is something that we could actually do, and I totally agree with Carlton, and I love that idea. That's the only way.
I mean, that's the only way I can think. I mean, you'd have to change it had to be so radical.
Yeah.
That that'd be the only solution I could think of. I mean, to be honest. And then you start pumping them out. You start pumping them out, and then ideally you could partner with HBCU and get them to to a Xavier or a Prairie View or a Southern or someplace like that where, and we get them with the right, plug them with the right people. But hopefully by 17, 18, they've been so entrenched, it's taken hold and taken foot.
And they can become
right. It reminds me of I love Star Wars movies. And if you remember episode 1 with Anakin Skywalker, they wanted to reject him. They said he's too old. He's too old to be a Jedi Knight because he's too attached to his family. He's too attached to his family's way of being. And it comes out, he ends up becoming Darth Vader. In the movies. Because he has that attachment to this old way of life. And if you look at the Jedi Knights, they always took people at 2, 3, 4 years old and started this training them. As soon as they were potty trained, they took them and they started training them. And they spent all day, every day around Jedi Knights being trained to be what? A Jedi Knight. It's kind of a silly comparison.
I just thought about what you just said. That's the truth of how they indoctrinate and train children anyway. You can apply that to the Buddhist monks. You can apply that to rich people. Very rich people go ahead and send their children to boarding school, and it's a unisex boarding school from early age. Military academies, they do that. And even in the movie The Spartans, that's what they did. They take them at a young age and train them. And so that's already a part of reality. And we've seen how that works. And the students become the teachers. That's the way the Buddhists do it. I think that we should follow the Buddhist model as far as teaching children. You can teach them because they should be learning martial arts and self-defense. They should be learning food growing and preparation, as well as the things, the academics, and Black truth and the philosophy of it. That is, tell them the truth, the whole truth, our good and the bad. All the truths and everybody's truth. And if you do that, we could have people that are ready for the next level. And that'll be our youth, because the young people will have to fight for their future. Us old people, we are past tense. They have the future and they got to fight for their future because that's part of their obligation. The people of the civil rights movement were not old folks. They fought for their future, the future they wanted. They were wrong in hindsight, but they did fight and they did succeed. It's only young people to fight this battle more than us. And they got to do more than just point fingers and criticize older people. They got to build and make something new. Okay, I'm going to yield too. Okay. And thanks, Carlton.
If I can jump in real quick, this is at its core what's wrong with Black folk, with Black America, and it's unique to us. We're the only people who allow outsiders who don't have our best interest at heart to come into our community and to lay a foothold in our educational systems, within our politics, within our economics. And I remember having this terse debate with a brother, and we were talking about the idea of nationalism. And he was trying to drive home the point, Black folk, what we need to do is we need to learn how to assimilate and we need to learn how to get along with them. And my response to him was, you wouldn't say that to a Jew, would you? And he just sat there and he said, you know what, you're right. I said, I know I'm right. Y'all changed the rules when it comes to Black folk. On the one hand, we the laziest thing that the world has ever known. Yet, if we get together and try to do something for ourselves, then we're reverse racism. And we have to understand at our core that regardless that we are what could best be termed their whipping boy. And wherever we turn, they're gonna whip us. So it's time for you to just go ahead and go on your own. And the as an educator, the idea of us starting a school and educating our own, can we get buy-in from parents who have spent 30, 40, 50, 60 years within this system and really don't see any liberating principles surrounding the idea of education?
That's why I wanted to start with the abandoned children. are the children that are in the system, and the discarded children, the ones that are off on the fringes that nobody wants. Start with them. Start with the children that are having trouble finding a home.
Yeah, but see, my thing is that I hear you saying that nobody wants them. I truly believe that they become a priority for white folk the moment that you treat them well and you start educating them. And then you're going to have some people snooping around from some government agency, some social work agency, saying quite simply, well, where your credentials, where these children are, and you're caught, you're almost brought right back to the thing of we got to go through white folk to do something with our own children. And that to me is morally despicable and repugnant.
That's why we got to head them off before they come. And that is read the laws before they even come to us. Read every letter and rule of the law, because we can hit that off at the pass, and we'll probably find that it's simpler than you think, but we need to know the law.
Yeah. I love it. I know the Brothers of the Nation will be super helpful
to know the law.
in that. The Brothers of the Nation of Islam would be super, super helpful, because they are always having these crackers in that situation. And so I just definitely want to yield and listen to what, the Brothers of the Nation had any ideas on something like that. And hell, I would probably want to partner with them to help with that part too. Because again, I want to make certain what I'm putting into Black kids, whatever they choose to believe in their faith journey, that's their business. It's independent conscience. But I want to make sure that I am filling them with some faith as well, in general, that informs them. It could be the NOI, it could be whatever it happens to be. But I would love, I could imagine having the NOI help sponsor different houses, different,
I like that too.
Having them help sponsor different houses where where they come in and they take the girls and the FOI is educating the young brothers and teaching them and helping them and guiding them while we're giving them the academic stuff that we're giving them, which I feel comfortable giving them, having FOI teach them about their Blackness and about their unique place in the world. Is in addition to that would be, man, that's
and we can call these religious
they
schools.
Kill our Black asses, man. I'm telling you.
A lot of those problems that he just named can be solved by saying it's a religious school and a religious community, because it's a separation between church and state already. But look up the laws and all of that. Plus, the other part is that as far as credentials, we are some of the most credentialed people in America. Even despite all of that, we're some of the most educated people in America. We have we got a highly educated demographic, because we thought that education would get a better future, whether it helped or not. And so we're one of the most educated, got the credentials all over the place. Got psychiatry.
Yeah, let me bring Sister Neff in so we can keep moving. I want to get to a certain clip.
Sorry, go ahead. But maybe we can talk about this some other time. But anyway, we got the seeds planted. Thank y'all.
Right. Thank you. Sister Neff?
Yes.
Okay. What did you think about the clip?
Well, it was a short one. What did I think about it? I thought it just sort of underscored the point I was making. I think at the time when they were moving into what she was describing was a bunch of students, a bunch of young folk taking action to change the conditions they were in. Sister Gwen, to the point that you made, just so y'all know, like the community is hungry for that, and it's actually happening. Even in Florida, when I lived in Florida, my son was a part of a school that was opened by a Black man. All the teachers were Black, and a lot of them were rooted in the nation. But the schools was open, and they were using the law. They were using this parents' choice that's running in Florida, where you have all of these charter schools. So if Black folk made up their mind and said they wanted to do this, we could have a bunch of Black Job Corps all over the place. So the opportunity is there. I don't know if people are taking huge advantages of it. Maybe there's going to come a time soon where they are. But I can tell you in Florida, that was my experience. When I saw that brother open up that school, I was just like, listen, he's either doomed in the white school or he's doomed with y'all. I'll take my chances with y'all. So
Well, let me ask you this, Sister Neff, because Brother Carlton used a good phrase. He's called it an unholy alliance. So her teachers, Fannie Lou Hamer teachers, and y'all correct me if I go wrong, but to my understanding, were Black. Her teachers were Black. And they never taught her about the Constitution. They never taught her about her right to vote. So in there, I see that as an unholy alliance, that they're aligning themselves up with the white man's order. They made an agreement with the cracker to keep our people ignorant. So what is your thoughts about that? Would you consider that even today to be an unholy alliance? Brother Carlton talked about how he had to do with a Mexican student who didn't know his history and was under the impression that he couldn't function in math, that he wasn't good at math. And so Brother Carlton had to break down where he came from and his background to let him know that, yeah, you really are, you know. Do you see that then, and do you think it's still present?
It's present, but I don't think in a way it's not a black or white thing. I think it's a survival thing, and I always like to take that out of if that's involved in the equation. If people are taking actions to survive, then it changes it altogether. And I know like folks is like, you didn't have a gun to your head, but sometimes in the conditions in this game, it feels like it's a gun to your head, or it can appear that it's a gun to your head. So I think honestly, Brother Muhammad, like it's about the adults creating institutions for the young folk and the actions that they're taking. Like that's all that folks who is grown and maybe don't see that, you know, they've sort of evolved and they're a bit callous, because we all are, even though I consider myself sort of radical in my thinking. Like when Carlton said what he said, I was like, yo, like, God, please, from your mouth to his ears, like just deliver that one thing, you know. I would be happy. I would die a happy woman if there was a bunch of Black boarding schools where the kids were at, you know, year round. Like that would be like a dream come true. But I think for adults, it's our responsibility to create institutions. Like a part of the problem is that people don't see, you know, yes, you can give them the ugly truth, but that's not enough. They need to see that the solution works. So whatever the solution, if it's the six of us, if we can create something tangible, that's enough. It's going to stand on its own and speak for itself. So I think that's a part of the issue we have, that there's not enough of that. There's not enough of that. So even if one brother, like that brother that created that school in Florida, you should have seen me and the rest of the parents. We're just like, yo, whatever you tell us to do, we'll do it. You know, so I think the saying is like, if you build it, it will come. I think that's where we're at. In terms of her teachers being Black and not giving her that, I don't know that they had a choice. And I don't even know for sure if her teachers were Black, and I don't know what they were teaching from. If they were teaching from the limitations of their own overstanding, then that's all they had. And they were working with what they had. And if they were able to produce a Fannie Lou Hamer, then I say they did more than we could have ever hoped or wished for them to be able to do. I rest.
So I just want to make sure I sum up that point to make sure I'm understanding. You're saying if your survival has something to do with it, then it's okay to have the alliance with the unholy? Sister Neff?
If it's about survival, if this unholy alliance is about survival, then we're not talking about an unholy alliance. We're talking about survival. we're talking about survival. I think for us, it's easy because we're comfortable. You know, you're talking about folks who had to choose between, and I gave the example, I think the last time that I spoke, when I read, I think I was at 13, the book between a mother who chose to jump off a ledge with her newborn and the folks who stayed and lived under that brutality. Which would you choose? That's the question we're asking folks. This is not about like this modern reality. What we're experiencing now is choices people had to make based on survival. That's how I'm looking at it. I do think what you're asking is an important question. If we're asking it in the present, I think it's different. But if we're looking at the past to judge what we are now, I think some of those choices that we made was based on survival. And if we're talking about, is it survival or an unholy alliance, I would say we're not talking about that alliance. It's about survival. They weren't thinking about that. They were only thinking about survival, making sure the next generation would be able to carry the torch and take it from where they were leaving it.
Okay, interesting. Doc, let's move straight to clip 2510. Let's go straight to 2510. And as Doc is getting this clip up, I want us to keep in mind while we're watching this unholy alliance. And I want us to keep in mind passivity is a sin. I want us to keep these things in mind because this is real. So I'll be quiet.
When I was arrested in Winona, Mississippi, I had been to a voter registration workshop, they were just training and teaching us how to register, to pass the literacy test. And it was giving us enough training that we could tell other people, how to pass the literacy test. We finished the workshop and then we got the Continental Trailway bus to come back to Mississippi. And we got to Winona, Mississippi, I would say about 10:30 that Sunday morning. And 4 people got off of the bus, to use the restaurant to get food. And 2 people got off, used the washroom while I was still on the bus. When I looked through the glass, I saw the people rush out. And I stepped off to see what had happened. And Miss Ponder told me that it was a state highway patrolman and a chief of police on the inside, and began to tap them on the shoulders with billy clubs and ordered them to get out. And I said, well, this is Mississippi. I saw them when they began to put the 5 people, what was, off the bus, began to put them in the highway patrolman's car. And she said, get back on the bus, Miss Hamer. And then I heard somebody scream from the car that she was in and said, get that one there. And then a white man stepped out of a car and told me I was under arrest. And when he opened the door and I went to get in the car, he kicked me. And they carried me on down to the county jail. Then when I walked in with the 2 white men that had carried me down, and they cursed me all the way down, they would ask me questions, and when I would try to answer, they would tell me to hush. And I was put in a cell with Miss Yvesta Simpson. And after I was put in this cell, I could just hear some horrible screams, and I would hear somebody when they say, can't you say yes, sir, nigger? Can't you say yes, sir? And they would call her names that I wouldn't want to go on tape. And she said, yes, I can say yes, sir. So I said, and she said, I don't know you well enough. And I would hear when she would hit the floor again. And finally, she began to pray. And she asked God to have mercy on these people because they didn't know what they was doing. And after a while, they passed my cell door with this young woman, Miss Annelle Ponder. And one of her eyes looked like blood. and her hair was standing up on her head, and her clothes had been torn. And then 3 white men came to my cell, and one of them was a state highway patrolman, and he asked me where I was from, and I told him I was from Rouville, and I guess he called Rouville, and they didn't like me in Rouville because I worked with voter registration there. And when he came back, he said, "You damn right." They said, "You're from Rouville, all right, and we gonna make you wish you was dead." And they led me out of that cell into another cell, and he gave a Negro prisoner a blackjack, and he ordered me to lay down on a bunk bed. And a Negro prisoner said, "Do you want me to beat her with this, sir?" And he said, "You damn right, because if you don't, you know what I'll do for you." And I laid down on the bunk like he ordered me to do. And the first Negro beat me. He beat me until he was exhausted. And after he beat, the state highway patrolman ordered the second Negro to take the blackjack. And during the time he was beating, I began to work my feet because that was a horrible experience. And the state highway patrolman ordered the first Negro that had beat to sit on my feet while the second one beat. And I just began to scream where I couldn't control it. And then the white man got up and began to beat me in my head. I have a blood clot now in the artery to the left eye and a permanent kidney injury on the right side from that beating.
Now, I heard Malcolm X in his speech, he talked about that. And he said, you can't blame those brothers that beat Fannie Lou Hamer. You can't blame them. And I disagree with Malcolm X then, and I still disagree with him right now on that. Because they had a choice. They could have said no. They could have said no. They could have attacked the police officers. They didn't have to beat her. They didn't have to do that. They chose to do it. They chose to do it. Now, Sister Neff, I know you said it's about survival. Then, if that's the case, the next George Floyd could be about survival. And people don't get involved because it may be the end of their time if they get involved. So the question, again, as Carlton pointed out earlier, passivity is sin. This unholy alliance, we really have to look at it and look and see how much of the unacceptable are we going to accept that this be our lot? To me, that's unacceptable. I think those brothers should have took that billy club and tried to beat the hell out of them crackers. Even if it meant that they would be killed in the process. It's worth it. It's worth it. So we are up on our time. We're getting real close on the time. So, but I want everybody to tune in to comment. Sister Gwen, what's your thoughts?
In hindsight, after all these years, we should have nipped stuff in the bud a long time before it even got to that point. Since we're going to backtrack and look in hindsight, we should have been nipping that in the bud back when they came on the coast of Africa. That's how far back I would go in hindsight. It's obvious that it probably would have helped us better if that had been nipped in the bud before it even got to that point. But these people would have been killed and killed horribly. They have already had a record of what white people will do to you if you defy them. That's the same reason that the teachers didn't teach about voting. They had a white person looking. We don't have to go back that far to look at that. We can be nipping stuff in the bud now and step up and look at whatever it is that we need to do. I'm not going to judge them. I'm going to judge us for still following that sort of rule, that is standing by while we get hurt. And we'll have to decide as a people whether we're going to fight back or stand and pray and forgive. I say that we at least at minimum hate and be mad, but I know people that are saying forgive and pray for them. I want to hate. I want to be angry. I don't like that, and I don't want to take it. So the least I can do is not fool with you. That's my answer.
Thanks, Sister Gwen, Brother Ronnie, Brother Hostile.
Yes. Well, there were people standing around while George Floyd got murdered. You know, as far as I'm concerned, we standing around now. You know, so I'm not going to speak to, yeah, you know, those brothers could have turned the billy clubs. You know, they may have encountered some social engineering, or you know, been tortured while they was in the jail cell and had some Stockholm, you know, you know, I can't say what those brothers' mindset were. I'm not gonna make an excuse for them, but I'm not in their shoes. But what we have to deal with is what we're dealing with, you know, now and today. I would hope that that I've, you know, kind of made some decisions in my mind. If some things have happened in front of me, I already kind of know, like maybe how I would react. It's a lot of stuff I try not to watch on YouTube or Facebook because I know I can be triggered. You know, you did have the brother down there in Dallas and the brother down there in Baton Rouge and the one out there in California that took some things into their own hands, but you know, we're sitting here still talking about it. You know, nobody followed up behind those guys, those lone wolves, you know. So, you know, I don't, like, I ain't gonna sit in a, you know, in a critical chair, whatnot, unless I'm criticizing myself. Um, and you know, this is like what, you know, it's a tall task and what we have to do now. As far as this, you know, I guess unholy alliance or whatnot, like I binge watched Sons of Anarchy, you know, and that TV show was kind of all about, you know, making alliances with people who's traditionally your enemy. And whether it was alliances, it was what can you get in order to advance yourself, your people, or help your people survive. If there's a group from overseas that's saying, hey, we'll sell you a bushel of these certain, you know, things that you can use to advance your people, what, am I not gonna buy them because they white? You know, and they would help, you know, advance my people. You know, I mean, maybe that's kind of out of context or whatever, but you know, like, this is war. Like, when you talking about war, you know, some stuff you got us to, you know, be able to work with, and you guys to be able to use. They've been able to use people. They've been able to use our own people against us. They've been able to use the people that they are oppressing against us. You feel what I'm saying? So like, we have to figure out a way to use people, you know, to our advantage. And with that, I rest my mic.
Thank you, Brother Hostile. Doc.
You know, the thing for me is that how do you live with yourself? for me, and this is kind of my thing. I can't stand to be talked to crazy. You talk to me crazy, I'm gonna talk back to you crazy, and probably try and do something to you, monkey ass. To have a white man tell me to beat a black woman, or I'm gonna beat him, and I got the weapon in my hand. Well, we gonna have an issue here. This something strange gonna happen on the way to the sunset. Because I'm not gonna do that. I don't give a fuck. I'm not gonna do it. That's one thing. But then you have this other thing of just your own personal pride. Okay, because truthfully, when you look at the centuries of abuse that Black folk have been through, I would just like to ask these cowardly Negroes, what else could they do to you that they ain't already done? What are you afraid of? And the truth of the matter is that until we really accept the reality that they are nothing more than flesh and blood, and for them to do something to us, they're gonna have to bring some ass to get some ass. Until you have that as your guiding principle, and understand that, and once again, taking it back to scripture, if God be for me, who can be against me? Fight their ass like God is on your side, and let the chips fall where they may. And I yield with that, brother.
Thank you, Doc. Brother Carlton.
Could have said it more clear myself. I mean, there is, again, we talked about this before on Thursday. Well, where's your humanity? And if are you that much of an animal and an empty vessel that you can do that with no conscience? Oh, and I get survival is important, but there comes a certain point in your life and in your time where you become more than just a vessel to survive and reproduce. And at somewhere, I don't know where exactly you learn that, or where that comes apparent to you. You become more than just an animal that breathes oxygen and breathes out CO2 and eats food and takes a dump and all those different things like that. All those different biological temporal needs that we all have. You start to learn about your humanity. And first of all, beating somebody at any person, especially like that, for no apparent reason, isn't acceptable. Second of all, it's your own people too, and you do it with glee. That I don't have a whole lot of sympathy. You're gonna have to own that for the rest of your life. And so, I say this: they can't come. They can't come to the barbecue. They can't come. They're not. We say everybody can't be saved. They can't be saved. You can't be redeemed. Unfortunately, you have cut yourself off from the community essentially once you've gone to that place. And so you have everything taken from you. You've lost everything. You lost access to everything that you need to survive and thrive and be who you're called to be, who you've been ordained to be by God. And then you go to this level. This is nothing redeeming here, unfortunately and sadly. And you've got to tell the story, because this can be, because if you don't change, if you don't repent, if you don't change and change your behavior, this is your future. This is your destiny if you do not change who you are and what you're doing. And with that, I yield back.
Thanks, Brother Carlton. Sister Neff.
Yes, thank you all for your insight, your perspective. I respect them, each and every one of you. I respectfully disagree. I think we're talking about two different things, or maybe more than two different things, but we're not talking about the same thing. And to me, what she described in the actions that those brothers took doesn't look anything like an alliance to me. And I wonder, like, who did they have to get home to? Who did they have to stay alive for? Who did they have to question about whether or not they would be tortured in front of? How many children were they responsible for? Did they have a mother
or a father who needed them to return home. And they knew that beating her would keep her alive and would keep them alive. Those are some of the questions I asked myself. Because the truth is, there were people giving up their lives, deciding the other. They had two options, death or death, and they chose to survive. Death or death, and they chose to survive. So there were people who were choosing death every single day. Every single day, people were choosing death. Every single day, people were tortured to death in front of these people we're talking about. So to me, she was a hero. An act like that is unfathomable to us, and I agree. But maybe we would have chosen death. He chose to survive. For whom? Was this a man who was just on his own? Or did he have somebody to return to and needed to return to them? Those are the questions I asked myself.
You know, the reason that for me, looking at that clip, because it's true then and it's true today, it is nothing has changed. Right? Nothing has changed. We're standing around watching, video recording each other being killed. And so it's like we had to take ownership of what we're seeing. We got to take ownership. We got to take charge. We got to take charge. Because if we don't, if we stay with this passivity, if we stay with this passivity, all we're doing is sentencing another brother or sister to death. That's exactly what we're doing. We're sentencing another one of us to death. And so we got to realize that and make changes. You know, I teach all the time that we are at war. Period, point blank. So I never leave the house thinking, yeah, I'll make sure I'll make it back home tonight. And that's never in my mind. Never. Because when the moment comes, when that moment of decision comes, I'm jumping on it. Period, point blank. I can't be no other way for me. I don't know how, as a doc, bro, how as a man, how do you look this sister in the face knowing that you whooped her like that? Because the cracker told you, and you did it. What's this? You're not even a man. You're not even a man. What God you serve? Ain't nothing real. And these are decisions that we got to make every day. And it's gonna meet us. Trust and believe the decision gonna meet us. Where are we gonna be at on the day of decision? This real. This ain't no make believe. On the day of decision, where we gonna be? That's why I always teach. I always keep telling you that cracker this, that cracker that. I'm pointing out his behavior and how it affects you because you got to destroy him. Because he gonna destroy you. Ain't no ifs, ands, and buts. This is the challenge of our time. And we can't go run and think it's just gonna be over. Somebody else gonna do it. It really just don't work that way. We gotta understand and take the realms and do what needs to be done. All of us are warriors on that battlefield. On that battlefield. You got Carlton and Doc in schools teaching, dropping it. So they come on YouTube or Facebook and come across Brother Muhammad and I say, oh, that nigga crazy. Let me run from that nigga. because they already been dropping the seeds. So when they come to Brother Muhammad, they say, yeah, I know what you're talking about, because I had a teacher that taught me right, so I can understand where you're coming from. Each one, teach one. We're all on that battlefield. We'll go ahead and move to closing comments, Sister Gwen.
As I always say, destroy the demons, power and blessings, and power and blessings. That behavior where they're beating the Black woman, it didn't surprise me because they were doing that all through the enslavement. And then that was how they punished them. And even if the white person didn't want to do it himself or the overseer, they'll send them to a whipping house where they would be punished and beat harshly. And it was done by Black men mostly. And that's not the first time or the only time. That's like the 1000th and something time, because that's what they did. This is a broken, when you look at that, that's a broken person. And they don't, you point to your heart and it ain't there, in him, it ain't there no more. So I'm not gonna look at him as example or except as a teaching tool about what not to do. Because because it didn't work, it didn't help us move forward. It helped us stay alive, but it didn't help us move forward and build. I want to look at that as a thing, as part of the way it was. We have to talk about what it should be, and that's where I'm at, is about what should be and what should happen, because we already seen that don't work. It didn't make us whole. It made us as far back as, just like you said. And so we have, when we fight that battle, our biggest part of the battle will be with each other and other Black people who don't agree with that we should be fighting. And so that's my goal, is to get us on the same page first, and then look at the enemy, because we'll be united looking at that enemy, and we are a long way from that right now. So that's where I'm at. I want us to look at that enemy as the enemy and understand that's the enemy and a demon. I don't think it's human. I think it's a human impersonator. I really do. Everything keep falling into place on that demon thing. Now, a lot of questions are being answered on the demon thing. These are human impersonators. They got enough human in them to blend in well and move forward, but they ain't us. I can tell, and I feel silly saying it, but keep looking and watching. You'll see. Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you, Sister Gwen. The high side.
Pardon? Okay.
No, I was saying thank you, Sister Gwen, calling on Brother High Side for his closing.
Yeah, it's been a good room, good video. I know we've still got a lot of the video to go through. That scenario kind of reminds me of the scene in 12 Years a Slave, where he had to beat the woman that was, or whip the woman that was really, really close with him. And that was, he had to leave her behind on the plantation when he got set free to get back to his family. It also reminds me of the movie Glory, when Denzel Washington was getting whipped. So, we can do, and I don't mean to demean anything you said, Brother Maurice, but we can do coulda, shoulda, wouldas. We really can't do that unless we're in those people's shoes. Me, I would, like I said, I would hope to have already made up in my mind what I would do, and let that be that on that. But we have to find, like, what I'm trying to do is find the people that are of like mind, that kind of is willing, to do like the things that I envision. Everything that needs to be done is not for me. Like, there's going to be people that need to do the waking up, the educating, the solidifying things afterwards and whatnot. But, like, everybody has their own position, job, and lane to do. So, I try to focus on mine as best as I can and prepare myself for mine. And I appreciate, these different perspectives and from elders, from people my age, and from people even maybe a little bit younger than me, and from different walks of life, different experiences. And with that, I say again, I appreciate the room, and I rest my mic.
Thanks, brother Outside Dot.
As always, Tuesday is one of my favorite nights because I get to be with such brilliant people. Look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. God bless you all. Take care while you're out there. Be safe. Peace.
Peace. Brother Carlton.
Pleasure as always, Brother Muhammad. Pleasure seeing you. Look well. God bless. Thanks be to God. I'm glad you're all right. Remember, we're in a fight. We're in the battlefield, and even if you ain't fighting and shooting back, they still shooting at you. So you best pick up a weapon and do something, or find a foxhole, do something, because the bullets are flying. So that'd be my best advice to anybody right now, what they're going through. Always remember humanity. Always remember your humanity. Keep your humanity, no matter what you're going through. Keep your humanity and keep your sanity throughout all this, through all these different struggles and challenges. But I will make one slight quibble with you, Brother Muhammad. There is a slight difference between what happened 50 years ago and what happened today. At least now we got it on camera, so people can't say it's not true, that it didn't happen. Because now we have the video evidence to prove it. That is the main difference. So listen, if you can look at that video and tell me that's not happening, okay, at that point we have nothing else to talk about. So thanks be to God, at least we have that to show people, to wake them up, at least shock them into waking up to their condition, their situation. But that being said, Brother Muhammad, it's a pleasure as always. I love you. I'll see y'all when I see y'all, hopefully next week. You guys have a good week.
Thank you, Brother Carlton. Love you too. Sister Nat?
Yes, everything everyone just said. It's always a pleasure being amongst brilliant, amazing Black people. Y'all amaze me every single day. Seriously, I just love y'all so much. Thank you for having this space where we can come and sort of learn together. Really appreciate you doing that. And it's a blessing and an honor to always be here with y'all. So I look forward to next week.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sister Neff. And I want to close with this prayer. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we should say this prayer 7 times a day. And it says, "Oh Allah, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief, and I seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness, and I seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness, and I seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, sufficeth thou me with what is lawful to keep me away from what is prohibited. And with thy grace, make me free of want of what is beside thee." And again, he said for us to say that 7 times a day. I hope that prayer will help, because we really have to make some serious decisions about our.
Hey, brother, send me that prayer in my message me that prayer. That prayer is powerful, brother. Message that to me if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
I will.
And me too, please.
Yes, ma'am. And you too, Sister Gwen? Okay, yes. I'll get it to everybody. Excellent. But as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm gonna kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Love y'all too. Good night.
Peace.
Peace.
Be safe.
Everyone.